Is the P365 XMacro the best high-capacity concealed carry gun on the market? That's what we're going to find out today on PP Tactical. We're about to jump into this video, but first, I have a proposition once again. For your like, comment, and subscription to the channel, I will provide you with two things today. The 4 firearms rules of gun safety, and yet another cringy meme. They just keep getting worse every single video. The P365 XMacro, in my mind, is kind of the final evolution, or should be the final evolution, of the P365 line of guns. We started off this journey with the 365, the normal 10-round magazine one, that definitely shaked up the concealed carry game quite a bit. We then moved over to the 12-round version. That was a little bit of a compromise. It gave us a little bit more grip, a little bit more to hang on to, and those 2 extra rounds for capacity. And then Sig just decided to full send it, and they created a new concoction of gun that really didn't quite exist on the market yet. You had kind of the Hellcat Pro that had 15-round capacity that kind of was jumping into this, but the Macro definitely set the pace for this new type of gun, which I kind of think is a mid-compact size gun. We are definitely not a subcompact anymore, but we're not quite to the point of calling this a compact because of just how thin it is. As you can see, this retains the same FCU, the exact same slide width as the original P365, and many of the parts are interchangeable. So you have an extremely slim gun that also happens to hold 17 rounds. Yes, this grip is a little bit long, but I think with the right concealment features in a good holster, you can probably conceal this gun just fine. So we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the ergonomics, the shootability, and what I overall think about this gun, and what it brings to the table as a really, really thin but highly shootable mid-compact size gun. Talk about the ergonomics and what we got going on with the Macro. I think that the Macro, this is personal opinion obviously, the Macro is one of the best fitting pistols in my hand. I think there's just a lot of combination with the different contours that Sig has going on, and when I pick this gun up, it just fits like a glove. Now, there's some things that I don't like about it, and we're going to jump into that in just a second. The first thing you're going to notice is the grip texture. The grip texture is definitely pretty aggressive. It's similar to a stipple. If you've ever felt, a professionally stippled gun, there's a lot of aggressive texturing here, which I really like. It's nice for whenever you're shooting those high round count strings of fire. Maybe your hands are a little bit worn out, you got some water or something on there. It really definitely helps dig and lock your hand in there. Now, I've mentioned this on the past with a lot of different guns, and Sig, the Fuse, for example, too. I really wish they included the grip texture a little bit higher on the frame, because when I lock and drive my support hand in, that whole big chunk of my thumb here is not contacting anything but bare plastic. So overall, I think Sig is definitely working in the right direction. I think their grip textures on the Macro and the other guns specifically have made headway, and I think we're definitely gaining a lot of ground. I think there's some area that we can still fill in and that we can improve upon in the future. The next thing we're going to talk about is this beaver tail. Now, beaver tail is going to be pretty subjective. Some people like very aggressive beaver tails. Some people, they chop them off with the Dremel right when they get the gun. In my opinion, I think that this beaver tail does an excellent job at protecting my thumb from slide bite. So as you can actually see here on my thumb, I've got some wear on my finger from a long history of shooting guns without long beaver tails that has torn my thumb up. Now, as you can see, the extended beaver tail that comes stock on this Macro definitely protects my thumb a lot, especially even when I'm drawing from appendix. If I'm able to get my thumb down and drop it down past the slide, this beaver tail not only protects my thumb, but it helps lock my whole hand in to the frame of the firearm, so I get a really good connection when I'm shooting. Now let's talk about the magazine release. For me, I have talked about this previously, I like to drop the magazine release with my third finger. Now, for a lot of people, they're going to use their thumb. I find that the way that this gun and how slim the grip is and the way that it's designed allows me to extremely easily drop those magazines. I can drop, this is pretty rare for me to be able to do this, I can drop the magazine on this gun without even barely shifting my grip at all. That is not something that I can do with many different guns. And you see these little ridges on here too. It's extremely easy to be able to catch. You don't even have to have a perfect placement of your finger on there. You just catch just a little bit of it and you're going to be able to depress that magazine. Now, it doesn't stick out too far to where you're going to have issues of depressing it with your support hand while you're gripping the pistol, or inadvertently bumping it, whether you're carrying an appendix, you know, outside the waistband, whatever it is you're gonna do. I've never had that issue, and I've carried the Macro for quite a long time now, and I think that they've done an excellent job with this magazine release. I think it's important to note for comparison's sake, because a lot of people are gonna be torn, do I get the Macro, do I get the 365 X or XL? I wanna show you just how different the grip feels to me. And I can show you that by the spacing between the back of my palm and the tips of my fingers. I want you to look at that. So you see just how narrow this gap is here on the 365 XL. Even with my medium-sized hands, I have very, very little space to drive my support hand in. And now that's gonna be nice for concealment. You're gonna have a really nice thin grip. But when we talk about shootability, being able to aggressively and quickly shoot multiple targets, that definitely can be problematic. This is not the same grip. They didn't just take a 365 XL grip and extend it. As you can see, they built up extra material here on the back of the frame, and you can see how big of a difference that was compared to the 365 XL when we talk about space to really drive my support hand in. I think that makes a big difference when we talk about the shootability and how easy it is to draw this gun, get a really good solid support hand placement, and be able to shoot. Now, some people are gonna bring up the caveat, well, what if I take my 365 I have this XL grip, and I throw the 12 round mag or the 17 round mag and get rid of the 12 round mag, add the little extension piece that comes on it, does that turn it into a Macro? Do I need to buy a Macro then? I'm gonna show you how this still makes a big difference. So as you can see, when I still have that grip, it doesn't make it any wider there, and you can see just how big of a gap I have right here. And this is one of the most important parts for me for shooting a pistol, is anchoring the base of the back of my hand right here. And you can see I have a nice little gap there. So you get the same capacity that you're gonna get with the Macro, but you're not gonna get the same shootability. Because when I show you the exact same place on my hand here on my right hand, you can see that's in perfect contact with the frame, and I haven't dropped down to the point there where it's gonna start, you know, getting air and I'm not gonna be contacting the frame. So at least for me and the way that I like to shoot and the size of my hands, I think there's a sizable difference between the shootability and usability with the Macro grip and your standard P365 XL grip. Let's talk about the slide controls real quick. So if you have a 365 XL, 365, you're not having much of a departure here. Now, one thing that the Fuse has, this doesn't have, is it has the little bit of extended slide catch. This does not have that. So with the Fuse, I'm actually able to come up, I can throw that mag in and depress the slide with my thumb. I'm not really able to do that with the Macro. So with the standard configuration of the Macro, for me, I gotta throw that mag in and either rack off the top or slingshot. Not a big deal, but something to just keep in mind when we're talking about this gun. In the slide and the slide serrations, they did include some slide serrations on the front. They leave a little bit to be desired. They're not the most aggressive slide serrations that we've seen on pistols coming out now. They could include them to run a little bit higher up here on the slide. You see they kind of end pretty low down here on the slide, but they are totally serviceable for, you know, your press checks. I wouldn't really necessarily front rack this gun to load it. I think the way that it's sprung, it's a little heavy for that. You also have some of these serrations here on the rear, which are gonna be perfectly serviceable. You're not gonna have any issues there. This gun does come with a nice set of iron sights for you guys that are still running irons. It's the typical Sig X-ray sights with the kind of blacked out rears with a little bit of tritium inserts in there. And then you have that nice bright green optic, or sorry, iron sight right there in the front. I find that for iron sights, I don't shoot those much anymore. That's about as good as you're gonna get, having that high vis, high contrast front sight that just pops out at you, kind of like a red dot. Now we are running a red dot on this particular one. This is the Sig Romeo X. What's nice about, you know, all these Macros is they come pre-cut with the RMSC footprint. So you can throw whatever dot you want to on there. For the review of this gun, we chose to run the Romeo X, and it's run, you know, pretty well. We had a little bit of connection issues with the battery, but we, you know, took it out, popped it back in, shot hundreds of more rounds, and we didn't really have any problems. So overall, I think you got a lot of good stuff going on with the ergonomics. We talk about the lower and the slide, but now we need to jump into talking about the accuracy of the gun. We're gonna jump into the accuracy portion of this test for the Macro. So we just have our Macro with the Romeo X enclosed. The dot's definitely gonna help me be able to print better groups with this gun. We're running a few different ammo types. We've got AAC 115, Blazer 124 grain, we've got Federal HST 124 grain, and we've got Sig V-Crown 124 grain. So we're gonna shoot 5 rounds through each here at 7 yards, and we're gonna see how the groups look. So we had pretty good accuracy results. This P365 macro, there's a few different versions. This one has the 3.7 inch barrel. So as you can see, our best group was actually the Blazer 124 grain. I will say on this Sig V-Crown 124, that was totally me. I had a little bit of flinchy attack me. So if you brought that one back a little bit, our best group probably would be between the Blazer and the Sig V-Crown 124. But all of these groups are well within an inch, and so I think you're gonna get pretty good exceptional accuracy out of this gun. The one thing, we'll talk about it in the next part of this video, will be the trigger. It definitely doesn't help when you're trying to shoot very, very precise smaller groups, either close or shooting targets at a farther distance, but it's totally serviceable. As you saw right here, we were able to get pretty good groups with this gun. Now we're gonna talk about the trigger. As much as I love the macro, and it's probably not hidden at this point, I absolutely love this gun. The biggest problem with this in my mind is the trigger. It's totally serviceable, totally usable. You can run very aggressively, shoot, you know, pretty accurately with it. The problem is it's just inconsistent and it's kind of mushy. So we're gonna talk about, you got a little bit of pre-travel there. You can take that up, you're gonna come to a firm wall. You're gonna feel pressure, 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 and you're gonna hit fake wall. And then another fake wall, and then another fake wall, and then the gun finally goes off. So it's definitely the biggest complaint with the 365 series of guns. The macro is no different in that, is if you're looking for a very, very clean trigger with a crisp break, this is not it. Now, if you apply and you shoot the gun well and you can press through and roll through that trigger, you'll kind of have more of a rolling break, which is something you can definitely train to. When we put this on the Lyman digital trigger gauge, we were getting kind of low 4s pounds is what we're looking at for this gun. So it's not a bad, that's a perfectly serviceable duty weight. It's not like it's 7, 8, or 9 pounds, which you get into triggers that are that heavy, it really can start pulling your shots off because you're having to put so much input into pressing the trigger. But this, I don't think if you have normal strength hands, you're not gonna have any problems with that. You're gonna be able to use this trigger perfectly well, but it's definitely one thing that I hope Sig would improve on in the future, is making these macro and P365 triggers just a little bit cleaner. We're gonna do our best to make technology work, but we've got a Lyman digital trigger gauge here, and we're gonna try and get a few different pulls to see our different weights with this trigger. If I can get it to line up. 4 pounds, 4.7 ounces. 4 pounds, 1.2 ounces. 4 pounds, 2.5 ounces. Cool. So when we talk about the shootability and usability of this, obviously the holster is going to be critical to that, because to be able to maximize the shootability of this gun, your holster has to have a few different things. So we use the Safariland Incog X and the Hidden Hybrid holsters. These are kind of for 2 different types of people that can work well in either regard. So basically with this Incog X, we're going to have that adjustable ride height. You got your mag caddy if you like to carry an extra magazine, which can be removed if you don't want to. The thing that's really important with something like this is obviously retention on the firearm needs to be good. It needs to be able to hold the gun where it needs to be and it's not going to bounce around, but also accessibility to the gun. Having the adjustable ride height, as you can see, these clips on the Incog X are a little bit lower than where your middle finger is going to sit on the grip. That's going to allow you to get a full firing grip. You drop that claw, drop that thumb behind the slide, you're going to be able to get that full firing grip out of the holster so you can start shooting as soon as possible. Something like this Hidden Hybrid can work well for those of you who are going to be more sensitive to Kydex on your skin. You got a little bit of a leather backing here and you got a Kydex front. This one also has adjustable ride height. It's just going to feel a little bit different. One thing to note with something like on this Hidden Hybrid, your thumb is going to have to come between the leather and the gun, so it's going to change your draw stroke just a little bit, so it's something you can train around. But ultimately, you had 2 great quality holsters out here while we were training and getting some testing on this gun. So just to make sure we're going to be able to feed our defensive rounds well, we got a magazine of Federal HST 124 grain, 17 of these. We're going to load it up in this macro, make sure that it cycles well. as expected, cycle totally fine, no issues. We're about to jump into our final conclusions and thoughts on this P365 macro. But first, if you are more of a reader, you want a more detailed article with some more information that we're not necessarily talking about in this video, we'll have a link down in the description. You can jump on our website where I've written up an article and you can go read that down below. So final thoughts, overall summary of the P365 macro. I think if you have the frame and you have a good holster and a good belt, to be able to conceal this gun, because yes, the grip is definitely a little bit longer. It's similar to like a Glock 43X, Glock 48, just a tiny bit longer than that. I think you're getting a lot of value, and I think you're getting a lot of shootability just for the trade-off in weight and concealability. So you're maintaining that really thin 1.1 inch slide width, which is gonna be really nice for concealed carry, but you're getting that full length firing grip. And I think with the right gear, if you can pull this off, I think it's totally worth it, because you're jumping into, in my mind, a different level of shootability when you're comparing it to something like a Hellcat or a P365. Yes, this gun's gonna be a lot longer. The weight difference actually is not going to be that much. You're adding, you know, a few extra rounds, but a lot of the things stay the same versus like a P365 XL. In my opinion, I've run a few thousand rounds through this gun in these types of macros so far. I found my ability to shoot very aggressively, very predictively, and consistently is probably the best with this gun when compared to almost any gun out there. Give it a shot, go out to your local range, try it out, you know, pick it up. I think you may be pleasantly surprised at this kind of new category of mid-compact size gun that the P365 XMacro has kind of been reigning as king in. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching the channel here at Pew Pew Tactical. We really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.